You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Welcome in, everybody, to Pathways and Means. Welcome back to the program. You know what? Thanks for giving us a half hour of your time. We appreciate it. I think it's going to be a really good conversation. I personally have been really looking forward to this one. I don't want to take too much time with the intro. Hope you're doing well and all that stuff, like as always. But we have a very special guest today that, like I said, I can't wait to have a conversation with him. I've overheard a little bit on different programs. I think we're going to have a good discussion. Without further ado, we've got Michael Odupitan in the building. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yeah, doing very well. Like I'm psyched. I think this is going to be a really good discussion.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the listeners. Selfishly, I'm a little more excited for me. So
I hope that I offer something that can be beneficial, man. That's what I say in these conversations. I'm trying to be really intentional.
Yeah.
So hopefully that whatever I have to say or whatever we get into, it helps in some capacity.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right in then. I'm sure a lot of our audience is at least somewhat familiar with you and what you got going on. You're kind of a mover and shaker here in the city. But just for anybody who might not know, the quick rundown, what's your background and how'd you get here?
Oh, man. So it depends on where we want to start. So I'll say came to Topeka in 2002. By way of being an athlete, Washburn University, played football there, ended up playing basketball there. And then from there, man, like you said, my background is I went to school for criminal justice, ended up switching majors, got a degree in social work and a little bit of psychology as a minor. And then from there, I had this goal of making it to the NFL. Didn't work out like most of us have that ideal and that plan, but it was time to get to work. So then it was like, what do I do from there? So I went into working with juveniles. I had my first job out of college was at Forbes Juvenile Detention Center out on Forbes Field. And that was an interesting journey. Worked there for 4 years, transitioned from there, went to the juvenile correctional facility here, Shawnee County, and then went into a foster care agency at TFI Family Service. And just kind of bounced around a couple different jobs working in that mental health field. Became a foster parent for 8 years. And I was achieving goals as far as goals for where I come from. Things that I didn't really have access to, but, I achieved some things that in my community, I just never really had access to be able to see people achieve, living in a 5-bedroom house, having 2 cars, having the kind of car of my dream. But I was looking for more after being here for roughly about 15 years. So I moved to Kansas City, was searching for more, had a tragic loss in my life. My mom passed away. And then just went through a growth process of figuring out what I was here for as far as in my life. And then moved to Tulsa, chasing history, Black Wall Street. And then after just trying to develop something, more so in the name of my mother and something that was going to give me purpose in life versus just living the day-to-day. Decided to bring back what I was learning to Topeka because, like I tell people, many people probably heard me say that Topeka kind of saved my life from all the things that were happening in my neighborhood. So now I'm here trying to make a difference and make a change and probably prevent some people from falling into some of the things that I fell into, but also giving the youth something to look forward to as far as creating for themselves and becoming their best self.
For anybody who's not familiar, let's talk a little bit about an intro to Omnicircle. What are you working on these days? What does that look like?
So Omnicircle, again, right now we're focusing on building our home right now. So if a lot of people that may be listening that don't know what Omnicircle is, we are a Topeka-based collaborative workspace provider, but we do a little bit of everything where we say we're trying to connect, collaborate to create. In those 3 phases where we say we do community development, personal development, and also professional development. Just trying to say, like I said in the beginning, helping people become their best self. So whatever they desire to be, that's what we try to help people become, whatever it is that they want to become, but giving them the tools and the resources and the access to things that typically we don't see in communities of color or just in any community. You know, if you don't have those things, we want to be able to show you the way to be able to grow yourself, grow your business, find a better job, get a better, become healthier in your life. You name it, we're trying to do a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. Here's a big question, and you can answer this in whatever way you want. What's your vision for the city?
I tell most people, man, that we just a sub goal to the larger goal. So like Topeka has its mission, right? We're living through Momentum 2027 right now, and in the center of that is equity. As far as myself, I would like to see a city that is more diverse, and a city that gives access to all people, despite their backgrounds, despite their nationality. But I think sometimes those accessible opportunities are not always readily available to individuals that come from marginalized communities. So we're hoping that what we are doing is building a space where individuals can be a part of the greater whole, but just creating more bridges, right? Depending on what side of the town you come from. But creating a bridge where people can be a part and enjoy the city for the things that are being created, but also having the opportunity to build in their own communities, right? Like we see a lot of communities that, that could be better. It's not just focusing on downtown. It's not just focusing on the west side or North Topeka. It's focusing on the east side. It's focusing on the south side. It's focusing on the central. But giving everybody the opportunity to kind of grow through and be a part of what's happening in this community.
What do you want for people who might be underprivileged in Topeka? What do you want them to know or them to be able to do that they don't right now?
What do I want them to know? I think we all have our struggles.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want them to know. I don't desire them to know. I more so desire them to become who they want to become. I think there's a thing about like learning, and again, we all gonna learn different things. So I can't desire you to know one specific thing because you're gonna find what you need to learn for yourself. And so I think in that essence, it's just like developing that mindset to help you grow into what you want to grow into. I think sometimes we all know it as we grow as adults that there were things that we just didn't learn in school. We learned it when we got older, and life taught us that, But sometimes, where is the space that we can learn about life, about some of the things that you just might not know much about? How do you learn those things? How do you, if you fell into a space where you're working a job and you want to become a better leader, where do you find that skill at? You know what I mean? Like you have to, most of the time you have to pay for that type of training. But there are some things that we can work on understanding, like how do you become more valuable? How do you offer more to an employer to get a better job? How do you become more healthier? How do you find balance in your life to become the things that you want to become? So I don't know if I'm pushing knowing. There's a lot of things that I think that we can learn from each other. Right. There's a lot of things that we do need to learn about the city, but I think for what we're trying to achieve is, I think if anything, if I had to say what I want people to know is I want people to know themselves. Find your center, find out who you are, and then find out where you're going, so that way you can kind of travel down your road of becoming the person that you want to become.
Definitely. So just hearing a little bit about your story, that you had some difficulties along the way to this space that you're at now. I always think of this question when it comes to sort of stories that are inspirational, and I wonder your take on it. So when things got really difficult, when you experienced that tragic loss of your mother, for example, what kept you from giving up, do you think?
I was in a space where I was giving up. Like I said, I hit the depths of my lows. But I think that, I don't know, man. Sometimes you run across that one or two things, or people might say something. Yeah. We were just having a conversation today, and one of the ladies in our group was saying, like, you just never know when you have community around you. You just never know when someone may say something to you that may be the turn. And even if they're not even trying to offer that information, you might just hear something. So I think community is big. When I lost my mom, I didn't have community around me in Kansas City because I had just moved there. I didn't know very many people. But I think that having somebody to go to when you're in need, and that came from me from like my work environment at the time. But then actually going to the funeral and hearing the stories of what people had to say was actually the thing that helped change my mindset. Like, you know, the whole time I was like, oh man, like this is hard. But I think like when I started to find out, you know, that I wanted to do something different and I wanted to create something, I found my purpose. Mm-hmm. And when I found my purpose, it was the thing that kept me alive. It was the thing that kept me driven, that I said, okay, I'm gonna go out here and do something different. And it kept me motivated day in and day out. So climbing out of the hole that I was in is like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that there was a light. So I wanted to see what it was like to get out of the cave, or you know what I mean, to get out of that hole and live above ground in the light. So I just got to it, and that's what kept me motivated.
Yeah. I think that the reason why I like that question, this is something that at CPM we sort of discuss as a team pretty often. Like, you'll hear when people discuss motivation or inspiration, you know, quitting isn't an option and that kind of thing. And it's like, you can never give up. Quitting's totally an option. People do that. You're allowed to do that. You know, that's I've said, especially even in this entrepreneur space, one of the refrains that I use is, we don't have to do any of this.
Right.
We could all go get jobs. You know, we can go work somewhere or do whatever, and lots of people do that. So I find that when people sort of, you know, grab life by the horns and they pursue their destinies or their callings, I think that maybe we sometimes don't give ourselves or each other enough credit that is an intentional choice. It's a decision to make a risk, and it's not as if you were forced to do that. You decided to seize on what you felt your life needed to be. And that's a difficult choice, and it can be a scary one. So I think that's why I like that question. And it sort of leads me into this idea that I constantly think when we're on these podcasts that there must be, or I at least I hope, there's somebody who is in that spot right now, or maybe they're stuck in a job they don't like, but they're like, this is just how it has to be. They went to college, they did what they were supposed to do, and now they're in this sort of mid-level position, and they think there's got to be more to it than this. And I often hope that people are listening and find some inspiration and realize that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. If that person in our audience were to ask you, or to just say, I feel stuck, I want to find what I can do, I want to get out there and achieve my goals, but I don't know where to begin, where would you start them off?
Go back to what I said in the beginning. It starts with you. It is your own understanding. That's what we say. YOU, your own understanding. When you define who you are, and then define where you want to go. And again, it can be anything. Everybody has a desire for something, you know. But when you find out who you are and what's maybe stopping you, right? Like, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and we talked about like just trauma. Everybody has trauma. You know, and the trauma is typically the thing that blocks us, right? There's the things that say, well, I can't do that, or I don't know how to do these things, but you do, you know, and you just have to know that you can. So what I tell people again is we talk about our own kind of philosophy, and our program is taken from those 7 habits of highly effective people is number 2 is to begin with the end in mind. You know, where are you going? What's gonna be your what's going to be the treasure at the end of your journey, you know what I mean? So I think that when you have an idea, I was watching something the other day, and they were saying like, don't set goals. And I was like, I don't know about not setting goals. You know, I understand the essence of what he was saying, but like, you got to have a destination, because the destination gives you something to drive towards. But when you begin with the end in mind and you understand who you are and where you're trying to go, then you have to apply, like I said, that's the vision part, right? Like the vision is to say, in 5 years, I want to be this thing. That's the goal. But then I tell people like, faith without work is dead. So you can have the faith, you can say, I want to achieve this thing, I want to go this place. But if you are not applying the work, right, then you're not achieving. So the action of actually doing what you want. So that's the part of being stuck. A lot of times people say, the stuck part is, I have a vision, my vision is in the future, but stuck is constantly think about the past.
Yeah.
You know, if you're always thinking about what I can't do because of what I've been through, then that's not going to propel you forward. You have to be future forward. You have to fall forward, you know. So as we talk about falling forward, and it's living in the action, knowing that you're going to make mistakes, knowing that things aren't going to be perfect, knowing that every choice you make intentionally leads to another thing, cause and effect. That's what the world is all about.
Yeah.
So as you continue to move, you're going to have things happen to you as you produce the action. But again, it's going to say, how hard are you going to go? Are you going to, you know, do it halfway, or are you going to do it all the way? You know what I mean? Are you going to live a life towards greatness, or are you going to live a life towards mediocrity? Mm-hmm. So I think in essence of getting what you want and getting unstuck, you have to understand a couple of these principles, you know, creating some routines in your life. Mm-hmm. For the things that you want that will get you out of the stuckness, you know, just making those choices. What am I going to do today that's going to allow me to create some routines that I don't have to no longer think about them no more. I'm just creating them, right? I'm just doing it. And then the kind of the final piece I tell people is that just understand things take time. Mm-hmm. You know, we have an idea for a thing that we want. We try to push for it so fast. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, it's going to be hard, but it's going to take time to change, you know, myself. But it's also going to take time for me to achieve it. Everybody talks about the bamboo, you know, taking time, and I get that. But also, you know, but that's just the life cycle of anything. When we look at anything great, it took time.
Yeah.
I mean, anything other than hitting the lotto and making, you know, $100 million. But even if you get it that fast, most of the time that people that hit the lotto and they get that much money, they end up being broke because they didn't do the work to sustain it. So yeah, I just think that, you know, if I had to offer that to anybody that feels like they're stuck, it's like really defining who you are, looking at yourself, doing an evaluation of self to say, what have I been through that is blocking me from becoming who I want to be? And then kind of addressing that, you know, and then finding out where you want to go and living in action to get there.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I love what you said about being stuck in the past, keeping you from getting to the future. That's actually sort of a lesson that I'm mid-learning even now. Dr. Joe Dispenza said that we become addicted to the pain of the past. Mm-hmm. We love to tell these stories about ourselves, about this is what happened, and that's because I'm this way. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it is. So that's how we define it. And it's weird to think about people getting enjoyment out of that, but we do. We tell ourselves those stories all the time. We get stuck in that. And you know, the other thing that Dispenza talked about is that your memory of painful events is not nearly as good as you think it is. Because you think you know what you felt, what your spouse or your girlfriend felt, what all context was going on. And we build these things up every time we retell these stories. You become a little bit worse, you know, the context becomes a little bit worse. And then all of a sudden, you have the narrative of this is who I am, this is how I acted in this situation, and that's all that can be. Mm-hmm. And that gets its hooks in you, and you can't move forward because you've already convinced yourself that it's not going to work.
Yeah, I love that, man, because I think that's where a lot of people, when I talk about these life things that we don't learn in life, we go to school, but we don't learn about who we are and how we were created. And I'd say even the brain work of that, right? Like understanding the different parts of our brain and how that has a big hold on who we are. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about, you know, your neocortex or your synaptic connections or your limbic brain or your subconsciousness and how all of that has a huge impact on how this body moves. Yeah. You know, so like if you're in here thinking about the past, this body doesn't move towards the future. You know, so if you are, you know, thinking about, now again, I talk about this a lot. People say, well, why don't you talk about your past as much? You know, because I choose not to live in it. You know,
sure.
I'm never gonna forget it. And I know that I know exactly where I come from, but I know what my future holds. Yeah. You know, if I keep worrying about what I didn't have in the past, then that's where I'm gonna stay. And I'm always thinking about those type of things, but I'm thinking so much about the future of what we're creating that I'm no longer thinking about, you know, those things that were blocking me or that old self. I'm thinking about who I am becoming in my new self every day. Yeah. So then that way I'm not holding on to anything that's gonna keep me stagnant, or even the things that are happening in my present, because tomorrow it is gonna be my past. So I think that when you think about releasing, there's some practices too, like that you literally have to do. Like if we talk about understanding what synaptic connections is, you really have to release. Like they talk about neurons that fire together, wire together, right? So if you can release those old connections, man, you start to create a new person. And that's what Joe Dispenza talks about. Like, who are you becoming? That's why I always use the word becoming, because it's not who you are today. We're constantly evolving as people. Are you constantly evolving, or are you staying who you are as the same person? I'm trying to become something new so that I evolve with the world that is changing, so that I am in line and in tune with everything that is going on. So when you talk about being blocked, typically that's because we are connected to past experiences, past education, past environments that say, this is who you are. But it is that point where he talks about breaking the habit of being yourself is overcoming body, mind, and environment, or body, mind, and time. So, or body, environment, and time. So I think that those are the things that we think about, like when you want to think about becoming unstuck, it's finding out who you are and where you want to go, and living in a proactive world, which is creating, versus living in that reactive, which is then living in the past.
The thing about that is that won't happen unless you decide to do it, because that's not the default situation. This is something psychologically that's always been interesting and a little heartbreaking to me. People will most of the time choose pain over the unknown. Even something that they know is painful is less scary than what might be out there. So if you have routines that you know are hurting you or keeping you sad, or you have a pattern of thought that's not serving you, you'll still think, but there's comfort in there. That's my routine. That's who I am. I know my identity in there. I know where I am. The lights are on in this room, even though there are things in here that hurt me, I know what I can expect. And so it's a difficult process to start, and it takes intention to start. Because people I don't think that, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but I think that it's much less often the case that people discover the path to their life's meaning by accident. It's the sort of thing that you have to put some thought into and decide and take action on.
They like you saw comfort. It hurts, but it ain't killing me. Right. But if I take that step, it may. But they say that sometimes, like you said, I look at these analogies of like, I saw something the other day where it talks about the depth of your pain is where you find your passion. You know what I mean? So like if you're in a comfort, and the pain is, what the pain is, but if I take that leap, it may be a 1,000-foot drop. But when you hit that 1,000-foot drop and you hit that rock bottom, what are you gonna do to come out of it? On the other side of that is growth. So this is where I tell people sometimes there's this, you go through these cycles where if you're in comfort, outside of comfort is fear, and fear is the intimidation and all these other words that we can throw in the mix. But then outside of fear is learning, and then from fear, then comes growth. So you have to understand that if you're in your comfort, being stagnant, right? Not making no steps, not living in that action, to get out of the comfort zone, you have to experience things that you've never experienced before.
Right.
And that's the fear. The fear is like, I've never done that. I've never done this, but just do it, because there's going to be learning in that. Right? Because it's something new. And learning something new is difficult. We all know that. You you can step into a new class or a new job or a new something, and it's going to be a brand new experience. And it's going to be tough. But over time, things get better, right? So when you step outside of your comfort and then you step into that fear zone, but you are comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Then you start to see yourself start to grow. Right? Because the learning and the experience of something new, and now you've expanded yourself. I like to use the analogy of like when I travel, back in the days we had these atlases and maps and I used to play GTA with my kids, Grand Theft Auto. And when you play Grand Theft Auto, when you first start, you have this small map. And as you travel outside the map, your map starts to get bigger, right? But you have to go experience something new for your map to get bigger. So sometimes, like when I travel in the world, I'm like, you know, probably different places you've been to. Like if you go to Texas and you've been to Texas right now, you're like, oh, I remember these streets.
Yeah.
But if you've never went there, you would never know what it looked like. So your map is expanded. So just like anything else, like the more and more you experience something new, you expand your map of knowledge. And now you're expanding your map of knowledge. So when you do different things, you can say, oh, I've had that experience before. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
And then you continue to see your growth in it and you get more comfortable and your map is more bigger and you're more comfortable with more things because of the knowledge and the experience. So I think that people have to learn how to get over fear. Les Brown says it all the time. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Fear is something that we create in our mind.
Yeah.
So if you create it, you can uncreate it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that a powerful way to sort of break out of these patterns, one that you'd already mentioned, is the idea of having goals. This is something that I heard at one time. You know what they call not having an aim?
What's that?
Being aimless. It's funny because that aimless word seems to have a lot more bite to it, but logically that's what that is. You don't want, you're not trying to be out here being aimless.
Right.
But if you don't want to be aimless, then you need to have an aim.
Yeah.
So do you think that goal setting is a prerequisite for becoming more successful or for growth? Do you think it's possible without goals?
I think it's hard, man, because I think that how do you even know? All right, so like you said, aimless.
Yeah.
So I say this to people all the time. If we had a goal, well, let's say we said we wanted to go to Chicago.
Sure.
Well, not even say we wanted to go. Because if we didn't have a goal, we wouldn't be going to Chicago, right? We'll be getting in the car just driving.
Yeah.
But how will we even know how to get to Chicago if that wasn't the goal? So we have to set some intention on where we want to go. Then we get in the car, right? But if we've never been to Chicago, how are we going to get there? We might not even know where it's at on the map.
Yeah.
So you have to have somebody that says, I've been to Chicago, this is what it looks like, and this is what it takes to get there. So then now that you have kind of this road map, now we know how to get there now. Now we can spend, if we never knew how to get to Chicago, we can drive around probably takes us years to get there.
Yeah.
But with the right map, it only takes us 8 hours. So this is where I say with like setting a goal, if me and you got in the car and we said we want to go to a destination, which is Chicago, then we find out the tools that we need to help us get there in a shorter time. Or if we don't have a map and we're just getting in the car and we're just driving and we heard that Chicago somewhere on this that exists, and we can drive around all year, the rest of our life trying to find it. But why do that? Why do that? So that's that aimlessly living. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a lot of times people are in life and, when you ask people, what do you want to do? What do you want? And they say, well, I don't know. Well, then you're going to get a lot of, I don't know, coming towards you. You know what I mean? You don't know what you want, but when you set a destination and you have a goal and you say, I want this thing, I'm going to achieve this thing. And you're finding people that can give you, the roadmap to get there. That helps out. So yeah, I get. They say that sometimes setting goals can be defeating because if you set a goal and you don't achieve it, it can be rough. Yeah. But that's a mindset too. It's like you're not gonna achieve every single goal that you set out to achieve. But like I used to tell my kids all the time, man, shoot for the moon and you'll land amongst the stars. It's not about getting the moon all the time.
And let me, this is killer. I just now realized that I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I think you're really going to like this. Talking about goals and the fact that you choose what your goals are and the psychological power of hitting them. So, I won't mention who necessarily right now, but a mutual friend and I both had decided to go on a bit of a weight loss journey. And we were achieving basically the same amount of success, where I think around this time we had lost about 40 pounds each. And he was just feeling deflated about it. And when we got to talking about it, like why he wasn't quite as excited as I was, he had mentioned, well, his goal was to lose 60 pounds. And he was like, well, I haven't done it yet. I just, now I'm plateaued. I don't know. I haven't quite gotten there yet. And I was like, well, my goal was to lose 10 pounds. And I've done that 4 times. It's like, I've hit 4 goals. What are you talking? I'm on top of the world right now. And it was this thing about picking what your goals are and making them feasible and achievable, and just each level unlocks with that. Because it's like, I'm not at 0. I've already done 2 of the things that I wanted to. On the way to maybe on the back of my mind, I have this larger goal, but no, I can track this success. I can measure it. And that just adds more fuel
Absolutely.
because you're not a beginner. Now you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So what would be the difference of, they talk about 10, like I say, we went 100. 100 is the goal.
Yeah.
And I just stacked 100. And then, or I can say, and not, I do this in myself.
Yeah.
I might have a goal of doing 100 push-ups a day. Getting on the floor doing 100 push-ups is hard.
Yes.
Right? But if I do 10 throughout the day,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's small, smart choices done consistently over time, the compound effect, right? Like the things that you do consistently over time will help you get to your goal. And understanding that last part I talked about, it takes time to achieve a goal.
Yes.
And not only like does it take time, but you build momentum. So like if I'm trying to do 100 push-ups in a day, I might get to 75 and I might be burnt out for the rest of the day. So I'm done, you know, I'm not gonna go back and do the rest. But if I'm doing 10 at a time, like you said, it's refueling me every time I hit a goal and I'm getting higher and higher. And the next thing you know, I am building along the way. So when I feel like, oh, I achieved that goal, I can do this again tomorrow. You try to do 100 and you get to 50 and you say, man, my chest is feeling tight and my muscles are tired. I need to get it. And then now you're saying, I'm not gonna go back to it. So I think that this is what you say, it is the small, smart choices done consistently over time, but then living in the discomfort of that process. Like, you know, as you're building it and you know, you want to be able to get the 100 done right away, but we have to get out of the microwave effect of achieving things. We have to give things time. And the more and more, and the bigger the goal, be honestly, the bigger the goal, the more time that you have to give it.
Yeah.
So, so I feel like right now in myself, I'm living in a pretty big goal. And I tell people like we've been at this or, you know, in Topeka for 3 years, but I've been at this for the last 8.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a pretty big goal, but things are achieving and the compound of it all is starting to happen. So yeah.
You know, Michael, I feel like I could sit here for 3 more hours and talk with you. I feel like we ran up on time a little bit ago, so we may wrap it up there. But if people are loving what you're talking about and want to follow along, get in touch or something like that, where's the best place they can go?
Just right now, man, I'm open book. So like I said, people can find me on Facebook. You can contact me. A lot of our information is on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
We are right now. Our website is up at omnicirclegroup.org. That may be changing here soon with the new website that we're introducing. So, yeah, just try to through some of those platforms. You know, just contact me, and I'm pretty open. So,
no, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Another episode of Pathways and Means. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it, and hopefully as much as Michael enjoyed it. And stay tuned. More episodes in the future. This is Ryan from the CPM Studios, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, visit pathwaysmeans.com to check out a ton of additional content from the CPM team. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and engage with creators like you. Signing off for Pathways and Means, we'll see you next time.